1980, 89 or 84, I can't remember which date, that it was last changed. You know, I think we might have missed something there. Those last many years, but you know, the board is working to rectify that. These were presented as parts of budgets, and we did vote to increase them. There are some departments, boards or committees or commissions that are still looking at their fees. There are some boards, committees or commissions that are looking to new ideas and new alternatives. For instance, the ZBA is looking at something new and different, and they're consulting with town council on that. So, you know, we're all entitled to our viewpoint. I think it is. I think it is headed in the right direction. It's not quick enough, and it's not fast enough. And it certainly. I would beg to differ about the pain felt by both sides. The pain is excruciating on both sides. The pain is excruciating to everyone, and whether you're on the school committee, the finance committee, or the board of selectmen, it's a lot of work, and it's a difficult process, and and there's no question about it. There's just not enough money to go around at all. None.
As a follow-up, is it the consensus of the board that in terms of having the third consecutive year of the school committee going backwards, that the board is okay with that? That, you know, I mean, I'm not advocating that you lay off for layoff's sake, but I would advocate that you give the individual departments, you know, increase. If you need to allocate more money in other departments where they have been losing consistently, maybe, yes, we're all fighting for the same piece of pie. Let the individual departments decide how they're going to make those savings. But it doesn't seem that there's been any creative solutions run through in terms of looking at flex time, staffing, looking at 4/5 alternatives, other things where you can avoid actual layoffs, but there may be some real cost savings. I just haven't seen, or from what I've been following, a lot of that happening on the general government side. Maybe you can fill me in on some of the cost-saving scenarios that have happened.
There has been a contraction within general government in terms of the budget over the last several years as well. It's not to the same magnitude as the school departments, perhaps, and it's not necessarily felt by the same constituency. You know, while your reference to the school department going backwards for the last 3 years, I guess I would take that a step further. Hasn't the community gone backwards for the last 3 years? Haven't we gone backwards for more than 3 years? And haven't we not made the right moves for more than 3 years? So it's a difficult process, and the bottom line is there's not enough money in the pot to go around. And I think that one of the things that we all learned last year was that we need to you know, we need to work towards finding ways of changing that, and I think we're working towards that. I think next year we're going to have to talk about an override, and that you know, is that acceptable to the, I can't speak for the other members of the board. It's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable what's been going on the school side, but it's not acceptable what's been going on the town side either, from my perspective. Well,
we've all been through the paper process of this what's happened. I haven't seen any information on the government side, but we all heard
in finance committee, in the finance committee budget, the hours were cut for the recording secretary. The expenses were lowered. Town council, the expenses have been lowered, which means the board has to be ever more mindful. Part of that is part of that cut in town council is predicated on the hope, or I should say belief, that we'll have all of the contracts settled, and that in and of itself has been a difficult process. And the town administrator's budget, how that negative 300 get there? That's not okay. It's just coincidence there's a negative 300?
There was a shift, that shit's gone. That just went to Mr. Callahan.
In the town administrator's budget, there was, and Tom or George, if I missed something, please step in. There was $6,000 in expense reductions, information systems. The capital was reduced. In the police department, personnel services declined 75,444, and then the capital was 115. The small capital was 115,359, and then some other expense items for a total reduction of 203,698. In the fire department, personnel services were reduced 31,184. The miscellaneous capital 51,8. The other services and expenses were reduced various amounts for a total of 131,234. In code enforcement, which is the building department, that budget was increased $3,790. The Board of Health personnel services were reduced slightly, and then some of the expense items for a total of $9,072. DPW was personnel and expense for a total of $84,808. Recreation was a total of $7,000. Conservation Commission was a total of $700. ZBA was a total of $1,200. I'm sorry, CPC was a total of $1,200, and ZBA wins the prize for the lowest cut, $200, for a total of $469,705. Mr. Callaghan.
What you're looking for is actually the reductions from the proposals. The actual total reductions of the FY03 reductions from the FY03 budget was $249,314. A lot of that is what he had mentioned. Obviously, the police overtime has been reduced because there's other contractual costs from the state regarding the Quinn bill that picked up those costs, so there are actually less overtime hours being allocated there. Fire, there's less overtime allocation on those. There is no capital program. There is no small capital program. At this point, there is no new computers being bought. There's no new furniture being bought. There's nothing that would cover under the small capital being purchased. The total difference from 03 budget to 04 reductions was $249,314.
03 adjusted.
From the 03 adjusted, it's in the book.
The other
Yeah, 03, no, that's the 03 adjusted. George, right? Correct? That's the 03 adjusted that you have in the book. In the budget book.
No,
That's not the 03 adjusted?
that's not adjusted for the 205,000,
No,
no.
I'm just saying though, is that the 03 adjusted is including the October, anything that went in October?
Yes, yes,
Right.
It's 03 adjusted, it's inclusive of October, but excludes the 205.
right.
Calvin?
You know, in budget times like this, everybody's feeling the pinch. There are two budgets that got increases. As Mr. Younger just pointed out, there's a slight increase in the police budget and due to the Quinn bill, and the school department budget got a $45,000 increase. This isn't unique, this budget situation, to North Reading. I mean, in the paper tonight, you know, Masconomet down in Boxford, one of the wealthiest communities in the state, is going through the same thing. Just to name one out of many. You know, one of the things you have to look at is, you know, when you talk about laying off people, I think the department heads and the town manager, the town administrator did a tremendous job in protecting the people that were working here in terms of their jobs, because those people provide service to the people in town. We need them to get the work of the town done. At the same time, we went into contract negotiations with all these people at the same time. And we held a line that was fiscally responsible for town government to be able to function at the staffing level we needed. The school committee goes into their own contractual agreements. They also had to make decisions, and they found a decision which they were comfortable with in terms of the contracts that were offered to the people that work in the school department. Those are the realities. Now, we can say, well, there are cuts coming here and not coming from there. But we also have to look at the overall picture when we went into negotiations with the different people in the different unions. And, I mean, the people in town hall accepted one fiscal reality, and in the schools there was another. And I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong in this, but those were the choices that were made. To say that the schools are going backwards, they're not. They have not been cut. They have an increase in actual tax dollars. Pardon me?
Please,
There's an increase in expenses everywhere. Okay? So when we say moving ahead or moving backwards, you're now making, you're putting your opinion on to which direction it's heading. If we're talking in strict dollars, they have not moved backwards in strict dollars. They actually have more funding for FY04 than they had in FY03. Every other, with the one exception being the police department, every other department in this town has actually lost dollars that they have to spend. And remember, they all negotiated a new contract. Not all of them are done yet, but those contracts are also included in the town, the municipal budgets right now, with an increase, and it wasn't necessary to lay people off, in large part due to the contracts that were negotiated. So, you know, if you want to give an opinion about which way they're moving, that's fine, but if you're going to talk about strict dollars in the budget, that's incorrect. They have not moved backwards, they have moved forward. Not much, but they've moved much further forward in terms of actual dollars in this budget than any of the municipal departments have.
With an increase of over 100 students, though, if you look at per capita, they're moving backwards.
There was an increase of 17 students last year.
There's a projected increase in enrollment of over 100 students.
Right, and it
next
was
year.
projected to be that last year too, and it was 17. So before we get into those numbers, let's just look in terms of the dollars. That's what we had to talk about, is the budget.
I know, but the
We have
dollars
a
affect
finite
some
number of
of this.
dollars that we can allocate. The school department was allocated an increase in dollars. The police department got a slight increase in dollars, and the school department got a slight increase in dollars. I don't mean to downplay that, but every other department in municipal government was decreased from where they were 1 year ago. I mean, that's the reality. That's what the budget shows. Thank you.
sir.
Hi, Dan Driscoll from Equestrian Drive. A couple of general statements on the process. Chairman, you commended your group as well as the school committee and the finance committee for the cooperation and the seamless process that seemed to have worked for you this year. From a lay citizen, the process is extremely confusing. It's very difficult to follow. It appears that despite efforts to participate and having some open meetings, it's very difficult for a citizen to actually have input into the process. There were some open meetings, people could make some statements, but they really didn't seem to have any impact on the process. To me, it's very unclear how decisions are made in this town. It's a town that prides itself on open form of town government. It's not clear who the decision makers are, how those decisions are made. Mr. Murphy, your point on the financial planning team, I think is what you called it. In a normal year, they meet 7 times. This is probably one of the most difficult years the town has had. They've met twice. That kind of tells me something, that whether it was implied or not, the perception from a citizen's perspective was, there were a lot of deals that were made behind the scenes